one thing, how if you can do it, if you have questions and if you can repeat them when they come from the audience, because the people who are remote, they cannot hear when it comes from the room, so
Okay.
the speaker has to repeat.
Okay.
It's also like a proof that you're listening.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hal. I'm here to give a presentation of circuit monitoring for dynamic circuit. And I'm working with Trupti and also Fane. Trupti is from Dante and Fane is from our ZIG or DFN. First, I'm going to show what has been done so far. We have demonstrated a simple example on the Vienna Symposium. We show the CMON demonstration for static circuits, and it has a standalone GUI, something like this, but I'll show you later on. It has a very simple architecture, which is shown here on the graph here. We have a headquarter, and we have some agents. Agents are monitoring data probes that gather in data and send this data to the headquarter, and headquarter put the data in the database here. And headquarter is physically located in Munich, and we have an agent in Munich as well, and an agent in Cambridge, and an agent in Copenhagen. So the idea is that we have one single headquarter communicating with agents, and each domain will have one agent or two. Then the agent will gather the information from the local area, and then put this information, integrate them into the database, and then we have a GUI like this showing whatever happens. It's for a static version, and I'm going to show you this. But due to the IP address blocking problem, I cannot access to the headquarters server from here, but I can access from my workplace. So I'll just show you an example locally on my computer. So this, once you have logged into this circuit monitoring system, you have this page, and you will have your authentication and authorization to go in. Then I'll log in as the admin. And this is the monitoring page where you have this list of static circuits shown here. And if the users are interested in this circuit, for example, you can click on this and he will be shown. Let me cancel this one. Here you have the glyph, URN ID of this static circuit, and then you have the topology here. So topology says, okay, it's a circuit from Northern virtually, from Northern through GND to DFN. And there are 4 ports or interfaces. So 2 are in GND, and 1 in Northern and 1 in DFN. And so this is the topology information. And here you will see the very live data about the circuit. So showing that we have for this interface, the status for this interface is like, when this data is put into the database, the time of entry, and the role of this interface, and some properties like speed or high speed, and then we have the operational status and admin status of this interface. And you can also go here and click on these filters to see the traffic volume, like how many bytes have been passed through this interface in and out, and the utilization. And you can also go for seeing all metrics. And here you can also go back to up to 1 day, 7 days, or 30 days, or 1 year. So that's the monitoring pages for ordinary users. And if you're an admin, you can go to the admin page. Here you can create a static circuit by uploading the XML file, which is formatted already. And once you upload that, your circuit will be appeared here. And then by clicking on the circuit, you can upload some segment descriptors, which we have already have the format of the XML files. And here you can add some domains. And for each domain, you can add the agent. You input the agent IP and also the name. So give a nickname for the agent, and you can choose the access method by XML file or SMMP query and local management system. The reason we have these three options is because. Okay, I think that's all for this. Because I cannot access to, as I said, I cannot access to the headquarters server here, so I cannot show you the live data flowing into the database. But if I did, then you will see if I change some parameters from the agent, then you will see this screen. It's refreshing every 5 seconds currently, so we'll see some changes on the table. Yeah, the reason for those three options, as I said here, yeah, why do we have a by XML and SMMP query and load management system is because it defines how the agent interacted with the local area. Some areas, they don't want direct access to their devices, so direct SMMP query won't be a possibility. So we say, okay, maybe we can ask them to provide some XML files for the monitoring data. Then we can keep refreshing those XML files. So that's the simple structure of the CMON static version.
I just have a question. What's the difference between speed and high speed?
Oh, high speed only exists for speed only exists for 1 gig Ethernet port or below. For very high speed, there's no the speed is set to 0. The value is stored in the MIP IF database. So just to a value that distinguish you from a normal Ethernet port or up to 10 gig, 40 gig.
It has to do with counter. One is 32 bits and the other one is the counter for interface. When it was made in SNMP, they thought they would never reach the 10 gigs, so they have this counter that reaches up to 4.2 gigs. And then they have the high speed, which is a counter. For example, if you have 1 gig, it will say 1, the high speed. The speed, it will say 1 million.
Okay.
Maybe it was a stupid question. Thank you.
But that's not a monitoring data. It's more like a property of that interface. It won't change during time. So then, yeah, we've done that following the plan to. We first put our focus on the static version of CMON, and then we're moving to the dynamic version of CMON, which is bound for the BOD service. And here is the structure, architecture of CMON D or CMON dynamic. You can see we have a headquarter here, and just ignore these two sub-functions there. And we have a local DB, and then we have a CMON GUI, as you can see. But that GUI we will later on integrate into PSUI, so don't mention, don't give it too much focus. And here we have the headquarter interacted with whatever Audubon has. It should be maybe, well, we use another inter-domain provider agent and provider agent. Technology proxy here. And For the Geon domain, there will be a possibility for the headquarter to interact with the MA and the Geon MP here. And for the rest, the headquarter will gather information from its agent. An agent will either interact directly with the data plane or through a third-party monitoring proxy like Nagios or Singa. So from now on, CMON will be working with the outbound domains, and we're looking for domains to participate in a pilot for cooperation. And there are some different strategies for different domains. It's about how we can gather the monitoring data from here to here. So the first one, we have a possibility for per device domain, per device monitoring, and we have a possibility for monitoring information from Emira's own MS. And then we have a possibility for monitoring at the edges where no internal topology is known, is just treat that domain as a black box. We only know the two edges of the segment. And the local management system does not have the monitoring capabilities via SNMP. And later on, Trupti will dig into these possibilities. And we also think that link status is a very important value to gather, and it also reflects the quality of the monitoring. So we're thinking that we can use either SNMP traps or SNMP polling. Well, SNMP trap is like when there's something bad happens, we'll get a notification from the data plane. And by polling is like the headquarter will have to just query the local system periodically. So if we look at the sensitivity to the link status changes, then we have the traps will be better than the polling. But not everyone is able to provide traps or willing to provide traps, so we're going to have a discussion on what you want to implement and what you want to see. Because if you want a system very sensitive to failure, then you have to provide some help here. Otherwise, you won't have a very sensitive system. Okay. So next, I'll hand it over to Trupti. And there's some monitoring options for
maybe you can give it to video without
Thanks.
yes.
Hvad sagde du?
Ja, men der er en mikrofon, som du har brugt nu, eller ikke?
Nej, de bruger den ikke på mig.
Okay.
Den skal lige på.
You have to use the mic. Otherwise, we just get like video without any sound.
So my speaker.
For the people who were in the room, it was heard, but for history, it's gone.
Do you want to do it again?
Yeah.
Right. So picking up from where Hao left off, he gave a good demonstration of the CMON static system. And one of the use cases for CMON is to monitor dynamic circuits. I mean, you provide a BOD service. You can't just tell your customers that, yes, here you can provision a here you can provision a circuit and that's it. You need to monitor the circuit, and you need to tell your users if the circuit is up or down, because it's bad news when your user tells you that the circuit is not up. So would you rather have your NOC tell you that, or would you rather have your user tell you that? So monitoring is very important, and in order to do that, we need to interface with your BOD tools, whether it's Autobahn or whether it's the tool that SurfNet uses or Nordinet uses. So we require certain parameters from the provisioning agent for monitoring. The main things we require are circuit identifier and segment identifiers. The circuit identifier is the end-to-end link that goes from domain A to domain B, and segment identifiers are the segment identifiers in between the domain that make up the complete circuit. So this information can come from one single IPA, which can be the home domain that actually requests the circuit, or it can come from each single domain that is participating in the circuit. It doesn't matter whether it comes from a single source domain, the home domain, or individual domains, but CMON needs to know both circuit and segment identifiers in order to monitor the complete circuit. This can be sent as a SOAP request to either the local CMON agent, so from your own IPA in your own domain, it can be sent to the local CMON agent, or it can be sent to CMON headquarters. It's a design decision, but basically it's a good practice to have it sent as a request to the local agent and leave it to the agent to deliver that request to the headquarters. It's necessary for CMON to know this information because, as you saw from the GUI demo that Hao gave, you need to know whether the circuit is up or down so that your MDSD can act on it. So that was about the getting circuit identifier and segment identifiers from domains. Now we need to see the different monitoring options that you can employ in each domain. So the first option is SNMP polling via script, which is one of the options that Hao also presented. So what you do is you use a script which can be provided by the CMON plugin. It can be provided by CMON software, and it can be installed at your own domain, and you can use simple SNMP queries in order to get information about link interface status, administration status, or the different properties that you saw. The advantages of this is that it is really simple, very easy to configure. All you have to configure is probably a list of devices, your SNMP community string, and the OIDs that you would like to get answer from. The disadvantages is that there is a polling interval, as in you poll these devices for link status, etc., according to a 5-minute interval or a 10-minute interval. So this is a push method. It's not a proactive method. So the agent has to get data only when it is sent from the devices, only when you poll the devices. So there's the second option, the SNMP traps option, which is also covered by Hao. Again, there are two ways you can send the SNMP traps, either to the local CMON agent or to the CMON headquarters. The SNMP traps option is most sensitive to faults, as in you can immediately know when there is a fault in your network. There is a little bit of configuration required. If you already provide or use SNMP traps, then all you have to do is add either the CMON agent's IP address or headquarters IP address as trap destination, and then it will be up to CMON to actually correlate that information from different domains, make sense out of it that it relates to this particular circuit, and show it on the CMON GUI. The other option is to send it to CMON headquarters, which is again, as I said in my previous slide, that as in the case of segment and circuit information, you can choose to send it to the local CMON agent or to CMON headquarters. In terms of load balancing and scalability, it's better to send it to the local CMON agent. Apart from that, there's no difference between the two options. The last option is using a RESTful API that is initiated by the domain, and the request for this domain monitoring data is sent to the local CMON agent. This is a very good option because it's completely technology agnostic. The CMON is oblivious to whether what you use behind it, whether you use SNMP or you use your own monitoring tool to get this information. So there's not much configuration required. But one of the cons is that the domain themselves have to have some kind of development effort towards developing such a RESTful API in order to interface with CMON. And once again, it depends on the domain whether it's using SNMP or it's using its own monitoring tool. I sent out an email regarding these options last week before the workshop so that you could all have a look at it, and if you could come back with any answers if you had to discuss it with your own team before you could come to the workshop. So does anyone have any particular preference? Because we definitely want to see this happening in the pilot. We want to have at least 3 entrants joining us. Jayant will definitely join. We need 2 more entrants. So
We spoke with HENet.
Yeah.
Maybe Gareth or Andrew. I think Andrew doesn't have sound, so it must be Gareth. Maybe you can tell. I don't know if you want to share your opinion about these different options and the idea of participating in some kind of pilot.
I think we'd be happy to participate in the pilot at least. We did have a look at the various different options. Haven't made a decision yet, but I think probably sending to the HQ is probably the best idea.
which option, sorry, can he?
2.2, 2.2.
2.2, okay. The trap sending to headquarters,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know, other
Any,
domains?
Leonidas, do you have any input?
Yeah, we could participate via our testbed, the 3 Juniper switches. I am not authorized to answer for the new Juniper network, but definitely you can have access to the 3 Juniper switches, which is a testbed.
As in we can poll them, or
Yeah,
can you send traps?
any option. I mean,
But let's choose an option that's future-proof,
Okay,
so after your migration as well.
I would go for SNMP polling.
Direct SNMP polling, or?
Mhm.
Okay. That works out well as well for us.
Actually, you only need Géant and 2 other domains.
Yes, we need 3 domains to participate in
But
the pilot.
more would be too many.
Yeah, my policy is if you ask 5, at least 3 will come, so if you ask as many, then
Can I say something about Janet?
Please.
yes.
Yes. Victor.
Yeah, Janet is running our own project, which is called Service Assurance and Monitoring, and we're quite interested in maybe joining this trial, but unfortunately it's the first time I'm listening to this presentation about CMON. I've got a lot of questions because it looks to me we've got a bit other approach. We are trying to use embedded standard agents into production equipment like CFM agents, and we got 1731 agents for monitoring, and would like to follow a standard character approach for monitoring. But generally, yes, Janet is quite interested in this.
It's good. So we have GRNet, we have HENet, we have Géant
Yes.
and Janet. So
Or not necessarily like participating in a pilot, but would you have any preferences for any of these methods?
I mean, the thing is, I will have to consult this with our log.
Okay.
Basically, one of the options I see is the second option. Is the second option where the SNMP traps will be sent to a local CMON agent. But recently, a new monitoring system was deployed in Pioneer, so the third option is also potentially available, but I have to ask our NOC if they are ready to write some script for that system.
right.
Bettina, Yanni, or you want to speak in the name of your entrants, or not?
I think I'm not really aware about how our monitoring system works, so probably all of these are possible, but we have to have an internal discussion about what is the best.
So can we contact you after, let's say, a week or 2 from today to know whether you've spoken with your technical staff, your NOC people, and then
The idea is
This-
not to participate in the pilot at this stage. What I think Trupti needs is to know which kind of methods you would favor. You know, asking your NOC, if you look at these 4 options, is there an option that's a no-go, for example?
Mm. I think Leonidas wants.
It doesn't have to do with the current options, but in GRNet we're deploying the new network, and we will use OAM for monitoring. So I'm not a network expert, but does anyone have any opinion on OAM? Have you used OAM? No.
What kind of OAM? Sorry.
Ethernet, MPLS. I mean, currently I have seen configuration in our network for MPLS. And then if you think of the architecture of OAM that's layered, you could have the top layer that's end-to-end. So I don't know if it could fit in data plane monitoring.
That's what I mentioned generally, and it was a sub-activity during Jean 3 years, which is called Ethernet OEM trial. It was combined activity of GRA 1 task 1 and GRA 2 task 3, I believe. So we explored CFM features of Ethernet OEM. We explored YDOT 1731 features for performance monitoring of Ethernet circuits. So, in our opinion, Ethernet OEM is a quite perspective direction.
But what does Ethernet OEM use below? Does it? I think it uses some sort of SNMP protocol, either polling or traps.
Well, it depends on the vendor.
Yeah.
For example, in Cisco, there is a MIP to get Ethernet OAM statistics via SNMP. Juniper does not offer it yet, at least for version, I don't remember, 11 point something that I've seen. But there's always the option of netconf, so you can get your OAM status or data via netconf. And then there have been some interoperability tests between Cisco and Juniper which were successful. For example, a test between an MPLS and an Ethernet domain, end-to-end. One domain was Cisco, the other was Juniper. So I don't know if there is any meaning into looking at OAM as an alternative for this.
And there is another option. You mentioned Cisco, Juniper, but there are small standalone Ethernet OEM agents, like, for example, Accidian boxes. Very small boxes, generally very simple Ethernet switch with 4 ports and with rich Ethernet OEM functionality. You can put this box, or there are even Ethernet OEM SFPs. So you can put this SFP into your port, and the traffic will go through, and at the same time it will be an agent.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments on these different options, or
No.
do you have enough to start the pilot?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
So putting it all together, that's just a technical detail of the flow diagram for CMON dynamic. The GUI or the central headquarters will get a SOAP request from the provisioning agent regarding the circuit and the segment identifiers, and once we get that information, we can use either SNMP polling or SNMP trap, or the different options that were mentioned in order to do the monitoring. So I think we've already covered people who are interested in joining the CMON-D pilot. The timelines were initially that the pilot would be ready by March of next year. So I think it's an achievable target, considering that we have a lot of we have 3 entrants who are now interested in the pilot. So we can start talking to them, gather technical details, and proceed. So those are the timelines for now. That's it. Any more questions or comments?